Good evening. It's time for RIGHTIES Rage. More mayonnaise, please. In today's video, we have Vice President JD Vance as he refers to Senator Alex Padilla, California's first Latino senator, as Jose. It tells you right there what he think of the man. So he doesn't even know the senator's name. He calls him Jose. Sounds like if he was sitting back in his kitchen saying, "Honey, I don't care what his name is. Just make sure he cuts the bushes the way I like. Where's that gardener?" No, this is not your gardener. This is a senator. It is Senator Alex Padilla. Now, I have a couple of pictures. This is when he was escorted during a Homeland Security event where he was talking and trying to get some answers about ICE arresting all these lawful immigration citizens. Look at the conviction. This man standing up for his people in an intense confrontation in an indoor setting. Look at this. California Senator Alex Padilla is pushed out of the room as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem holds a news conference regarding protests in Los Angeles on June 12, 2025. Vice President JD, referred to as Senator Alex Padilla, California's first Latino senator, as Jose Padilla, a week after the Democrat was forcibly taken to the ground by officers and handcuffed at a Los Angeles news conference. Taken to the ground and handcuffed for speaking his mind. JD Vance continues with, "I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question," Vance said, in an apparent reference to the altercation at Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's event. "I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't a theater, and that's all it is." He says they want to be able to go back to the far or the Democratic groups and to say, "Look at me, I stood up against border enforcement. I stood up against Donald Trump," Vance added. In a post on X, Padilla responded that Vice President knows my name, but that's not the point. He should be focused on removing thousands of unnecessary troops from the streets of Los Angeles, not petty slights. You see that? Democratic Party. You see that? He takes the high ground because that's what we do. We don't do the far right tactics. We don't attack people for unnecessary meanings. We don't attack people for empathy and being human. They show compassion and humanity. The far right has lost all empathy and compassion. They are robots. That's why they work so well with Elon Musk. Now, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass had harsher words, suggesting Vance's comments had a racist intent. "I guess he just looked like anybody to you, but he's not just anybody to us. He is our senator," Bass says during Friday's press conference. In a statement on X, Governor Gavin Newsom responded to Vance's reference to Jose Padilla as saying, "The comment was no accident." Jose Padilla, also in the name of a convicted Al-Qaeda terrorism, plotted during President George W. Bush administration, who was sentenced to 2 decades in prison. Padilla was arrested in 2002 at Chicago O'Hare International Airport during a tense months after 9/11 attacks and accused of the dirty bomb mission. So our Vice President of the United States called a California senator by the same name as a convicted Al-Qaeda terrorist. Wow. Wowdy, wow, wow, wow. Now let's see what we got here.
We begin with President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown and the increasingly aggressive tactics used by the administration as it ramps up its efforts to hit its deportation goals set by Stephen Miller, who is not the president of the United States. Immigration and Customs Enforcement have escalated its immigration raids on restaurants, businesses, as well as showing up at immigration courts around the country where folks are checking in as we require them to do. We are seeing even more National Guard troops being deployed in Los Angeles, even as the city has remained mostly peaceful this week. And yesterday, Vice President JD Vance traveled to LA, where he toured a command center and met with Marines who were sent to the city. He notably wasn't arrested or roughed up by any officials. And then there is the disturbing pattern emerging of the government's crackdown extending to the political opposition, with the number of Democratic elected officials, like you're seeing on your screen, being handcuffed, arrested, or even indicted in these efforts. With the latest example being New York City Comptroller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander, who was arrested Tuesday at an immigration court after he tried to escort a migrant whom officers were attempting to arrest. DHS accused Lander of assaulting law enforcement, though the video does not clearly show any such assault, and no charges have been filed just yet. It came just 5 days after California Senator Alex Padilla was forcibly removed from a DHS press event and handcuffed. Senator Padilla gave an impassioned speech on the Senate floor this week.
If that is what the administration is willing to do to a United States senator for having the authority to simply ask a question, imagine what they'll do to any American who dares to speak up. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. We all have a responsibility to speak up and to push back before it's too late. So I do encourage people to keep peacefully protesting. There's nothing more patriotic than to peacefully protest for your rights.
We're joined now by the senior senator from California, Alex Padilla. Senator, I want to play some sound from the vice president's trip to Los Angeles yesterday and get your response on the other side.
Sure.
Well, I was hoping Jose Padilla would be here to ask a question, but unfortunately, I guess he decided not to show up because there wasn't the theater. And that's all it is. You know, I think everybody realizes that's what this is. It's pure political theater. These guys show up. They want to be captured on camera doing something. They want to be able to go back to their far left groups and to say, look, me, I stood up against border enforcement. I stood up against Donald Trump, when all they're really standing up for is for drug cartels to run rampant over our country and sex traffickers to be able to continue to traffic little kids into our country. That's what you're doing when you stand against border enforcement. So I think these guys, we ought to laugh them out of the building.
Just want to say some things here. Vice President JD Vance served with you in the Senate for multiple years. He is currently the president of the Senate where you serve. He also went to Yale. I assume that he knows your name is Alex Padilla. Your response to him calling you Jose?
Oh, he knows my name. He knows my name. Look.
Tap into hundreds of deals on all your fresh faves. The Acme app.
Sadly, it's just an indicator of how petty and unserious this administration is. He's the vice president of the United States. You think he'd take the situation in Los Angeles more seriously? You know, you think maybe he'd take a moment to talk to some of the families who have been impacted, have been terrorized?
That's exactly what I'm saying. You would think he would take the time to talk to some of the families. You would think he would take the time to show some empathy. Now, we know there are some bad people out there. But every time we bring up talking to the other side, every time we ask the far right to show some kindness, some humanity, they bring up the bad people that, of course, hurt or killed people. No one wants them in the country. Even the migrants don't want other migrants that are killing people in the country. They're worried about their lives and their children being trafficked by these same evil individuals. But why not talk to the ones that are doing good? The ones that are actually coming here to work and pay taxes and do the jobs that a lot of people in the United States don't want to do. It's not difficult. We got to stop making cliques and picking sides. I know it's Democrat, Republican, whatever. But you still got to be able to reach over to the other side sometimes and hand them a napkin and say you have something on your face. You might want to wipe it off. I appreciate that. Thank you. But not leave it on their face, make them look stupid. Zoom the camera in on them. When did it get so bad that it's like the old days when you kids? It's like, well, if I don't like them, you can't like them either. Like you can't have any individuality. The Republicans has turned into, what is Elon Musk's robots called? What are they called? The Optimans? The Octobots? What something? They turned into robots and stuff where they don't even know how to treat another person. Look them in the face.
To feel what's really going on the ground. I mean, you saw him shaking hands with Marines, but did he listen to the Marines? Because we have, report after report of the Marines, so many of the Marines themselves that don't want to be there. That's not why they enlisted. Or if not the migrant families, how about the employers who I know are speaking up because they're concerned about their workforce? Or how about this? Just take a moment and talk to the sheriff of Los Angeles County. Talk to the chief of police of Los Angeles City and hear from them their frustration for the lack of communication, the lack of coordination, this unnecessary and counterproductive buildup of the National Guard and the Marines, making their job as local law enforcement more difficult. Or even if you couldn't do that, how about taking a moment to go to the Pacific Palisades and Pasadena, Altadena, and talk to the families who lost everything in the fires from last January? Because guess what? Months and months later, there's still no additional disaster aid coming to so many people in the region. We got a lot of important work to do, but this is how the vice president chooses to act, and that says a lot.
We should also point out that a Vance spokesperson said, quote, of the vice president, he must have mixed up two people who have broken the law. You didn't break any laws.
I didn't break any laws.
Senator, we've known each other for a long time. You are a calm, serious, mild-mannered person. But ever since what happened to you and watching it just now on the screen, and tell me if I'm wrong, I sense a change in you. How has what happened to you at that press conference changed you?
Yeah, well, I think people who have known me for a long, long time would tell you, don't mistake kindness for weakness, right? The work that we do is serious. And I've been serious about my service, my oath to office, my commitment to my constituents for a long time. But when we see overreach, so much overreach like we've seen from this administration since January 20th, we have no choice but to stand up. We have no choice but to speak up. And look, I think what happened to me, as painful as it was for me, for my family, it's not about me. I've said repeatedly, if this is what this administration is willing to do to a senator trying to ask a question, imagine not what they can do, but what is happening in all corners of the country, especially in Los Angeles right now, when the cameras are not on. One of the things I've been trying to shed light on, and we've now seen reporting on this, is, yes, if this was only about cracking down on drug dealers, violent criminals, dangerous criminals, et cetera, there'd be no debate, there'd be no discussion. Everybody's on board with that. But what this administration is doing is far from that. Recent reports show that more than 90% of people taken into custody since October have no serious criminal convictions.
You're citing a Cato Institute study, 93% no violent convictions. This came out yesterday.
Right, and so what is happening? That maybe 7-ish%, again, no debate, no discussion there, but the others, these are people that, like my father, working as a cook in a kitchen. People like my mother who cleaned homes for a living, trying to raise a family. You've seen images of ICE agents literally chasing farm workers in the fields of Ventura County, workers in car washes, workers in hotels. They're targeting courthouses, houses of worship. Really, that's how evil these immigrants are, that they're going to church, they're going to work, kids are going to school. These are the same group, the cruel irony here, the same group of workers that the first Trump administration deemed essential at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. But they don't care. If the vice president doesn't care to say my name, the president doesn't care about what's happening, because they don't have any answers. Like, where's the...
And I would say this, and I feel like I'm pretty much say this with a guarantee, and this is not to be a slight. You're not going to see any Caucasian or black people picking fruit. You don't see many black or Caucasian in car washes washing cars. These are just jobs they just don't think about. These are just jobs they just don't do. I couldn't tell you the reason why. I'm not a psychologist. But I'm just saying, a lot of the migrants that come here, whether they tell family, word of mouth, they work with farmers. They help pick crop. They help pick some of the fruit and the vegetables that we will be eating this summer. And a lot of the farmers hire them. Of course, because they can pay them lower wages, which is probably not good for them, which is probably why they're considered illegal by most people. Instead of coming over here to try to build a better life, they're taking jobs that people don't want. Why mess with people that actually working? That's what I'm saying. Get the people that's not working, that's just over here to do bad. Get the people riding the mopeds trying to snatch people watches and purses in New York. Yes, we want them people out of here. Get them out here with the quickness, please. But grabbing college students that's going to college, that may learn something, that may actually benefit the government and work, I don't understand how you just go for those type of people. Like I said before, waiting 4 a.m. in the morning for a man to come out to go to work, which means you know that he's going to go to work that day, which is why ICE agents can sit outside his house at 3 a.m. in the morning to wait for this man to come out at 4 a.m. in the morning, because they know that he's going to a job. I mean, when do you attack people that actually go to a job and work and pay taxes? Where's the sense in all that?
It's a counter proposal to here's how we modernize our immigration system. There's no crisis at the border right now that they're using as a pretext to justify these actions in cities across the country. Part of my call is twofold, out to the general public who's worked up about this. What do we do? I get that question everywhere I go. What can we do? We've got to stay vocal. We've got to keep standing up. Last Saturday's peaceful protests around the country was inspiring. It cannot be one and done. We've got to keep active.
Senator Padilla, in the New York Times, you wrote an op-ed on how what's happening in LA could be a wake-up call to all Americans. I'm going to read you to you. What's happening in Los Angeles is a warning shot, but I pray it can also be a wake-up call, not only for my Republican Senate colleagues who have stayed silent in the fear of their colleagues, in the face of their colleagues handcuffing, but also for Americans of every stripe who think they're insulated from Mr. Trump's power grabs because they're not immigrants or because they're not from a blue state. Democracy doesn't fall from any one decision or any one attack. It falls from 1,000 cuts that slowly erode our fundamental freedoms. When you say it should be a wake-up call, do you feel like it is? You talked about those protests last week. How do you channel that energy moving forward?
Yeah, exactly. Making sure that it's not a one and done out there. We got to, across the country, not just in Los Angeles, stay vocal, stay active. There's so many ways to do that, right? Let's organize the next march and peaceful protests. We cannot let this administration have it easy. What they want is for us to be quiet and to cower and not call them out. Maybe your engagement or activism is calling your Congress member. Do that. Maybe your engagement is supporting an advocacy organization. You can do that. Maybe your engagement is making sure your friends and family are registered to vote and getting ready for the midterms. So that's what the general public can do. Everybody can do something. My colleagues, you mentioned, what I had to say about my Republican colleagues, especially. Look, I got to be fair and honest. There's a handful that have reached out to me privately and offering words of support since what happened last week. But only a handful, not all 53. And what I've been trying to make clear to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle is the way the Trump administration has done this in Los Angeles has paved the way for doing it anywhere in the country.
The tip of the spear.
And it happens to be Los Angeles. It happens to be about immigrants' rights. But clearly this administration doesn't like it when anybody disagrees with them. Anybody showing dissent, this is how they can come at you anywhere on any issue. And just imagine if the Biden administration would have taken these tactics, what would Republicans be saying? So you got to call it straight. You got to call it for what it is.
It's like, what wouldn't they be saying? Let me get your reaction to something that DHS announced on Wednesday. DHS says that lawmakers like you must give 72 hours notice before visiting ICE facilities. To my mind, that is unbelievably wrong. Am I wrong? Why?
You're not wrong.
Do you have an oversight role?
Look, Congress as an institution is a separate but co-equal branch of government. A key part of our job is oversight and accountability, exactly what this administration does not want. And so they will try to throw up any hurdle, any roadblock to keep us from our oversight and accountability role. That's all I was doing. Right? That press conference, as you know, I did not barge in. I was escorted in by my...
You didn't lunge at the secretary.
I did not lunge at the secretary. Thank God there's a video that demonstrates that. I had the audacity of trying to ask a question. And why? Part of the context is because for months and months and months, they've been dodging questions in committee. They have not been responding to letters from Congress or formal inquiries that we've made for information, for data. And so I heard there was this press conference, asked to join. They opened the door for me. I sat quietly on the side until the rhetoric compelled me to speak up, not just as a senator, but as an American. The notion that they're suggesting that it's their job to liberate Los Angeles from our duly elected mayor and governor, it is too much. That, too, is a threat to red states and blue states. But Donald Trump has made it clear. He started targeting blue states as nothing but a brazen, partisan, political attack, and it's wrong, and we're not going to stand for it.
Senator Padilla, real quickly, at that press conference, it was the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was at the podium. The statement that came out from the agency made it sound like this person just burst in and we didn't know who they were. Did Secretary Noem, did she know who you were before this incident?
Well, if she didn't, that says a lot about her, right? She came through the Senate for confirmation. Right? I'm on the Judiciary Committee. I serve as the ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee, which DHS reports to. So if she didn't know who I was, that says more about her, a lot more about her than it does about me.
She knows now.
She definitely knows now. Senator Alex Padilla, senior senator from the great state of California. Thank you very much.
That is just crazy. That is just insane. And the last says, speaking at City Hall, Bass said Vance was spewing lies and utter nonsense. She said hundreds of millions of dollars were wasted by the federal government on a stunt. How dare you say that city officials encourage violence? We kept the peace, Bass says, until you sent the army out there. Now I know we keep throwing these words around, empathy and humanity, and let's see, what's empathy? What is that? The ability to understand and share the feelings of another. He has a total lack of empathy for anybody. You see what I'm saying? That's all it's saying. That's all people are saying. Just show some empathy, a little bit of humanity for people that's trying to get over here. That felt like they were invited by the last administration. And then the new administration come in and you don't even find a way to help them be processed faster, to get their green cards, to come in here to vet them. You just like kicking them all out, just send them back. Don't even know where they all live at or anything, what they gave up to come here. Let's say empathy is generally described as the ability to take on one's personal perspective, to understand, feel, and possibly share and respond to their experiences. There are more sometimes conflicting definitions of empathy that include, but not limited to, social, cognitive, and emotional process, primarily concerned with understanding others. I'm telling you, that is just, let's see what else. Humanity, the human race, human beings collectively, the fact or condition of being human, human nature, humanness, benevolence, learning or literature concerned with human culture, especially literature, history, art, music, philosophy. Wow. I mean, it doesn't take much, man. Jeez, to show love for each other. God, oh. How can we be out here trying to fight these wars when we having wars in home? Like say, we need to take care of in-house affairs first. Now, this was supposed to be the full Senator Padilla's full speech on the Senate floor after he was thrown to the floor and handcuffed for trying to ask a question during one of the Homeland security meetings on the situation in Los Angeles.
Last week, when I heard something so blatantly un-American from the Secretary of Homeland Security, a cabinet official, of course I was compelled, both as a senator and as an American, to speak up. But before I could even get out my question, I was physically and aggressively forced out of the room, even as I repeatedly announced I was a United States Senator and I had a question for the Secretary. And even as the National Guardsman and the FBI agent who served as my escorts and brought me into that press briefing room stood by, silently, knowing full well who I was. You've seen the video. I was pushed and pulled, struggled to maintain my balance. I was forced to the ground, first on my knees, and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why. I pray you never have a moment like this. But I will tell you, in that moment, a lot of questions came to my mind. First of all, where are they taking me? Because I know I'm not just being escorted out of the building. Am I being arrested here? And what will a city already on edge from being militarized think when they see their United States Senator being handcuffed just for trying to ask a question? And what will my wife think? What will our boys think? And I also remember asking myself, if this aggressive escalation is the result of someone speaking up against the abuses and overreach of the Trump administration, Was it really worth it? But colleagues, how many Americans in our nation's history have marched, have protested, have shed blood, even lost their lives to protect our rights? How many Americans have served in wars overseas to protect our freedoms here at home? And how many Americans in the year 2025 see a vindictive president on a tour of retribution, unrestrained by the majority of this separate and co-equal branch of government, and wonder if it's worth it to stand up or to speak out? If a United States senator becomes too afraid to speak up, how can we expect any other American to do the same? And colleagues, you know me. I can't think of a person who would describe me as a flamethrower. I try to be respectful. I try to be considerate to every member of this body, regardless of our political differences. And so I do want to take a moment to thank all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who have reached out to share your messages of support, whether they were public messages or many in private. Trust me, they mean the world to me, and I know they mean the world to my family. But if you watched what unfolded last week and thought what happened is just about one politician and one press conference, you're missing the point. If that is what the administration is willing to do to a United States senator for having the authority to simply ask a question, imagine what they'll do to any American who dares to speak up. If what you saw happen can happen when the cameras are on, imagine not only what can happen, but what is happening in so many places where there are no cameras.
We already know what's happening where there are no cameras. We already know what's going on in the background of these situations. We already know. You don't have to tell us. We see what's happening every single day. If it was a good thing, it wouldn't have been such a bad thing in Los Angeles. Again, no one wants the bad characters here. No one wants the bad people. No one wants anybody that hurt. Essay. I know YouTube, you have to use words now because they just, I just turned totally PG, but did anything, deleted anyone. We don't want anyone here that does that. But people that's working hard, that's supporting for their family. You know, one of the main things that keep people in control is people that care about their family and their fellow neighbors. When you have people like that, they will go to work. They will pay their taxes. They will do what's right. It's the bad people you want to get out. You should have just stuck with that. You didn't have to say we need to get 3,000 out a day. We don't need to put a number on it, because that's when you have them going for college students. You have them going for people that's working hard all day, doing 2 jobs, double time, overtime. No, then they can take their time. ICE wouldn't be so pressed to feel like they got to crunch the numbers. And they could take their time and do their due diligence. And they could hunt down the really bad people, whether they're migrants or U.S. citizens. You can hunt down the bad people and get them all out the country. Send them to El Salvador or wherever else. But messing with good people is what got people upset. Because no one wants to do 2 shifts and then come home and find a bunch of people hiding outside their house waiting for them to come in because they say you didn't stayed in the country a month too long. I mean, that would drive anybody. Anybody see that new movie on Netflix called Straw by Tyler Perry. I mean, you reach your limit, and then next thing you know, you're doing things you never thought you would do. I mean, people can snap. Now, this is when JD Vance went to meet with some of the military personnel. And then you got to understand how the military, I mean, one of their mottos is like, protect the people that can't protect themselves. And then they bring you here to go after the immigrants that's coming here to fight for a better life because some cartel has taken over and said, if you don't let your son join the group, then we get rid of him. If we don't get your daughter, then she'll be essayed and attacked, and she'll be part of some weird harem or something. And they're over here fighting to stay here and stay in the country. I mean, they don't understand. That's power right there. That's actually power, to have them come over here and they're working hard. And you say, hey, you work hard, you do this, you can stay in this country. That's how you keep people in line. Most people will stay in line and they will do what they have to do to stay in this country. Then you could weed out the crazy ones that don't care.
JD Vance. Vance flying into LA this afternoon for a quick visit, meeting with Marines and Border Patrol at the Federal Building Command Center in Westwood. Then he bashed local officials for their response to the immigration protests, even taking aim at California Senator Alex Padilla, who was just in that building last week, interrupting Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem during a press conference.
The good news is the rioting has gotten a lot better, but the bad news is, as I heard from everybody, unfortunately the soldiers and Marines are still very much a necessary part of what's going on here because they're worried that it's going to flare back up.
Now, during her press conference, LA Mayor Karen Bass lashed out at Vice President Vance, who for a moment called Alex Padilla Jose Padilla and never corrected himself for doing so. Bass said that was offensive.
Mr. Vice President, how dare you disrespect our senator? You don't know his name, but yet you served with him before you were vice president, and you continue to serve with him today, because the last time I checked, the Vice President of the United States is the President of the U.S. Senate. You serve with him today, and how dare you disrespect him and call him Jose? But I guess he just looked like anybody to you. Well, he's not just anybody to us. He is our senator. And you fly in, you parachute.
When you write, your tone influences.
Well said, well said. She was letting them know what's up.
In the city, I don't know if you've ever been here before. You parachute in the city, you pass all kinds of judgment, and then you leave. And you add to the provocation, you add to the division, or you attempt to create division in our city. But I just want you to know that our city is standing together. We are united. You might attempt to create division, but you are united. Standing with me today are families, business owners, community leaders, representatives, and nothing you can do will divide us.
Mayor Bass accused JD Vance of lying and damaging our economy. Now, before Vance addressed the Marines in West LA, he sat down with Fox's Bill Malugin for an exclusive interview. Here's a portion of that.
So you're here in Gavin Newsom's backyard.
Yep.
Whole lot going on in the world right now.
Sure.
Why come to LA right now?
Well, first of all, we've wanted to come and check out what's actually going on the ground, show some support to the FBI agents, the National Guardsmen, and the Marines who have been here, I think, bringing peace to.
So you've come to check a week after most of the events happened. A week after, when things have settled down, you've decided to show up. If that's not the, yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's like, okay, so you're not in the trenches. You come in after everything's looking clean and they've washed the streets and stuff for you. Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I can go see what's going on. I'm surprised he didn't come off of Air Force One wearing one of those military helmets and a bulletproof vest or something, like he about to go to a war zone or something. When you're just going to LA, all you had to do was invite Kylie Jenner and gave her a Pepsi, and she probably could have came to what was going on and had everybody cool down by showing the officers and some of the migrants that want to stay here how to come together and drink a Pepsi and celebrate life.
So what was a very chaotic situation thanks to the leadership of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. If you really think about what's at stake here is the basic principle of, do we get to enforce federal immigration law when the people's duly elected president says we've got to enforce our borders? And I think obviously the answer is yes. And what you saw in Los Angeles was really, I think, a conspiracy of the mayor, the governor, and a lot of radical left protesters who are going to say, no, we're not going to let people enforce the immigration laws of the United States of America. We in the Trump administration had a different attitude towards that. Obviously, you've seen that immigration happen all over Southern California. I think we've now restored some order to Los Angeles, and thank God that we did, because I think absent President Trump's leadership, you would have seen the city really spiral out of control, which we don't want. I think it's a beautiful city. It's got a lot to offer, but you've got to be able to enforce immigration law.
What's your metric for determining how long the military is going to be here in Los Angeles? Things are calm right now. Are you going to keep them here for a while in case there's more activity? When do you pull them out?
Well, I think what the president says, you got to do this case by case, right? See how this goes, see where we are in a few days, ensure that you don't have the increase in rioting activity. I mean, look, when these riots break out, people can't access basic services, stores get destroyed, people's economic life is destroyed, and of course, if the riots really get out of control, you have people violently attacked. So we're going to pull out the troops when we feel confident that level of instability is not going to return. But of course, when that happens and when the president makes that decision, of course, it's easy to put people back in if you feel like that rioting starts to ramp up again.
At the beginning of the administration, the idea was worse first, right? Targeting the worst of the worst criminals.
Sure.
You guys are still doing that, but we're also starting to see Home Depots getting hit, car washes, agriculture workers. Is the net widening? Because we hear, there's targets, they want 3,000 arrests a day. So are you guys widening the net in terms of who you're going after now?
Well, first of all, Bill, let's step back and appreciate just the radical success of the Trump administration. Simply.
That's a yes or no question. That's just what I was just saying. See, by you giving them numbers talking about 3,000 a day, then you have ICE being hyperventilated, and they're going after anyone to try to make those numbers work. It's called hyperventilate. I forget the name. I'm sorry. Help me out with that if you know in the comment. Hypervigilant. That's it. Hypervigilant. So they're just trying to lock anyone up. They're riding down the streets and they see anyone that they think fits a brown person. They're just going after them instead of going after the people you need to go to. That's what I'm trying to say. It's so easy to work with both sides where you don't have to worry about one better than the other. No one wants bad people in the country. That's it. If you went after the bad people, you wouldn't have any problem, and everyone would have a happy 4th of July, and we could celebrate the flag and the military and everything else. But you're going after innocent families. This at Home Depot buying a bag of charcoal so they can have a cookout. If you're having a cookout, they're not trying to escape or hide in the country. They're trying to have a good time, drink some Coronas, and just relax. But you're going after anyone. It's like anybody can get it. Now, I know on the show on MSNBC, one of the hosts has said before, she said, people don't understand. It's like a beginning of something. See, some people, you don't look toward the future. Some people just look at the now. But you don't understand. By them just grabbing, with the ability to be able to grab someone and say that we don't think you're from this country or you don't belong in this country. What if? I'm just saying, what if? What if on another planet, Earth 22, where they just decide to say, like, well, let's start doing black people. Let's figure out where they came from and their ancestors, and let's ship them back or something. I mean, it could get to the extreme. All it takes is the right person in office and the right administration of his yes people, his hand-picked, yes, sir. I bend the knee, sir. I kiss the ring. And it could go to the extreme where they say we send everybody back. Like black people say in the country. I ain't never been to Africa. I'm not African-American. I'm American. You know what I'm saying? But they don't believe that. They're like, they said Jesse Jackson is the one that came up with that. They said that it was several leaders that went against it. They said, no, Just let us be American. We don't need a name to separate us. We already got Caucasian, white, black. We don't need African Americans. They never been to Africa. But he went on and fought for it, and they sure enough said, hey, let's go ahead and give it. No, the people that came from like Ghana yesterday and they become a citizen, they are African Americans. We are American. Our ancestors been here. I don't want to give the speech of over 400 years of how people have been here. We've helped this country become the country it is. Our culture is imbued in everything. Our music. So, I mean, what if they decide that they want to just pick anyone? And it just don't have to be black. What about Indians? What if they say, well, you have a war going on now with India and Indonesia. We want to get rid of Indians. We want to get rid of Asian people. You know what I'm saying? You could just, like I said, when you have that, they can say anybody that don't fit the color that we want, let's start giving them a little harder look. Let's not give them a pass. Let's do frisk and searches on them. That's why people don't want people to get like the beginning of the spear tip, because once you get the beginning of the spear tip, then you can do whatever you want going down the handle, and you can decide to go after whoever you want or do whatever you want when you let them get that foot in the door. That's why when the police show up, you don't open the door. You say, can I help you? And you look through the peephole, because once you open the door, you stick your foot in the door, and then you can't close the door. And who knows what can get in. Most of the time it's flies.
Through having a president who cared about border enforcement, we've gone from close to 3 million illegal border crossings per year to actually net negative illegal immigration in this country. In other words, we're deporting far more people than are coming in illegally into our country. That's exactly what should be happening. And that really all it required was a president who empowered federal law enforcement to do the job of enforcing our borders. So, yes, you're right. Now, what do we do? What the president has said is we really want to focus on the illegal immigrants who came during the Biden administration. But also, we're enforcing everywhere. In other words, the president has said if you are an illegal immigrant into this country, you ought to voluntarily go back and come through the proper channels, because we don't want people who have come into the country illegally just staying here indefinitely. That's not the policy of the Trump administration. We've empowered law enforcement to really enforce the law. Yes, we're focusing on the most violent criminals. We're focusing on people who came here illegally over the Biden administration. But put simply, if you came into the country illegally, if you're not a legal resident of the United States of America, you ought to go back home and come through proper channels.
Our thanks to Bill Malugin for that conversation. Bill did that interview with the vice president before the news conference where Vance spoke. I, along with other local media members, requested access to that press conference, but the White House denied all of our requests. 8 members of the national media were allowed in, no local reporters able to ask him about any local issues.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Again, it doesn't take much to, like I said, to make our country great again. I mean, in the beginning of that is to show some humanity and to be kind to others and stuff. I mean, we're about to get into a World War III. I mean, we may need some of these people to actually join the military and help fight for what's about to come. And you're grabbing people from Home Depot and places like that. You know, and I heard they just attacked a flea market in New York and arrested some of the people that was buying fruit and sharing and stuff. I mean, our country, they just, it's too much. It really is too much. And John, I mean, again, you don't see no one talking about that military parade that was $50-60 million, and half of the people showed up. You know how much the No Kings protest cost? I think it was about $1,000. They used about $1,000 to get on social media, pay for some ads, and get the word out And you know who showed up? Millions and millions of people came out to protest. But you had a $60 million military birthday parade, and I think you got about 100,000 that showed up, and most of them didn't want to come because the security was so tight that no one wanted to deal with it. Or did they not want to come because they didn't want to show their support for a dictator? Just like the way ICE wear masks. People didn't want to be on camera where people could actually see them. Because no matter how many people that sprue, oh, I support Donald Trump, I'm with Donald Trump, oh, he's our guy. You still have people that's not willing to just say it out loud and just speak their mind unless they're in a group of like-minded, like a cult. But you'll find democratic people and people that fight for democracy, they will be by themselves, they will be alone, and they will walk and they will march, and they have no problem being themselves. And that's the real issue that most of the Republican people have. They're scared to be themselves. They feel strong as long as they're in a group. But it takes way more strength to be yourself, especially when you're around a lot of people that don't want anything to do with you. To be able to continue to fight and go on day by day, and then let these bullies push you to take away your life or your dreams. Now, I know people come over and they like, is this the whining channel and all that? No. I'm just trying to talk with my voice kind of low because I'm hoping that it sounds kind of cool. But, I don't know. What I'm saying is, again, like I've said it before, if you feel like you're alone, you are not alone. There are other people out there that feel the same way you do. And if you know any, I wouldn't mind you tell them about my channel and subscribe. Come back and see me. Because this is Righties Rage. More mayonnaise, please. And I'm here with you to fight. And we in this for the long haul. This is not just going to be 3.5 years. This is beyond. And I will see you next time. Keep the fight going. The far right is not done. They're going to keep pushing us and keep pushing us because they think that we are weak. But we are not weak. You are strong. And you are stronger than you know. All right. This is Righties Rage. And y'all my ride or die.